It all began with something so small that I could hardly believe it led to everything unraveling. I was in the living room folding laundry when Ethan called out from the hallway. "Sophia, can you help me with this?" I turned to see him standing by the stairs, struggling with his belt. His khaki shorts sat awkwardly around his hips. The leather strap of his belt tangled. "Can you fix this? It's stuck or something?" he asked, walking toward me. "Sure," I said, setting the towels aside. I moved closer, carefully working to untangle the strap from the buckle. "Still stuck?" I asked, concentrating. "Yeah, sorry," he replied, holding his breath as I worked. When I finally freed the buckle, his shorts loosened suddenly. Time seemed to freeze as he quickly scrambled to fix them, his face turning red. Sorry," he muttered, hastily adjusting his clothes. I stepped back, embarrassed. "It's fine, it happens." "Yeah, thanks for the help," he stammered before rushing upstairs, leaving me alone, my heart pounding. It was a brief, awkward, momentary accident. But something shifted after that. The air felt charged, and I couldn't shake the feeling that things had changed between us. Neither of us ever spoke about it, yet the unspoken tension lingered. My marriage to Michael had long settled into quiet routine. It wasn't bad, but it lacked warmth. We had married later in life, both emerging from failed first marriages. Michael, a man of habit, spent his time at work, on golf courses, or with friends. I filled my days with gardening, charity work, and keeping the house in order. Then Ethan moved in. Michael's son from his first marriage had always been polite but distant. I had only seen him during holiday visits while he was still in college. Back then, he was a reserved teenager. But now, 6 years later, the young man standing at our doorstep was different. Ethan had just graduated with a fine arts degree, which Michael didn't think highly of. Struggling to find his footing in the world, he accepted his father's offer to stay with us while he figured things out. I had no say in it, but I didn't mind. The house was big, and honestly, I welcomed the company. I didn't expect how much his presence would change the energy in the house. Ethan had an effortless charm, a quiet confidence that drew people in. His dry sense of humor and warm smile filled the empty spaces of our home in a way Michael never did. At first, it was just small moments. One morning, I was trimming the hedges when Ethan appeared in the doorway, holding a cup of coffee, barefoot and still half asleep. "You're up early," I remarked. He shrugged, taking a sip. "Couldn't sleep. Besides, someone has to appreciate all the work you're putting in out here." I laughed. "Don't let Michael hear you say that. He thinks this garden just takes care of itself." Ethan smirked. "Michael doesn't notice much." His words caught me off guard, but I let them slide. Over the following weeks, our conversations grew longer, more natural. He lingered in the kitchen while I cooked, sharing stories about his college days, asking for advice about job applications. One afternoon, I found him sketching in his notebook. "Mind if I take a look?" I asked. He hesitated, then handed it over. His work was stunning portraits, landscapes, intricate designs filled with emotion and depth. "These are amazing," I said, genuinely impressed. "Thanks," he said quietly. "I just do it to pass the time." "You should show these to someone," I suggested. "A gallery, an art director. You have real talent, Ethan." He smiled faintly. "You're the first person who said that." His words lingered between us, and something stirred inside me, something I couldn't quite identify. Then came the belt incident, and everything started to unravel. For days, the air between us was thick with unspoken tension. I tried to keep my distance, but the house was too quiet, too small. We kept crossing paths. One evening, I was washing dishes when Ethan entered the kitchen, his hair damp from a shower. "Sophia," he said softly. I turned, my heart racing. "Yes. I'm sorry about the other day." "That was awkward." "It's fine," I said quickly, focusing on the sink. "Let's just forget about it." He hesitated. "I don't think I can." I froze. His voice was heavy with meaning, and my chest tightened. I turned to face him, struggling with emotions I didn't know how to handle. "Ethan, we can now," I began, but I couldn't finish. He stepped closer. "I know, but I don't want you to think it didn't mean anything." Before I could respond, Michael's voice called from the front door. The moment shattered. "I'll be right there," I said, turning away. But even as I walked away, I knew something had changed. The days following were filled with avoidance and stolen glances. Michael remained oblivious, but the tension between Ethan and me was undeniable. Then, one afternoon, as I tended to the roses, Ethan appeared behind me. "You're always out here," he said. "It's peaceful." He stepped closer. "I think you like avoiding me." I held my breath. "I don't know what you mean. Don't you?" His voice was soft, insistent. I turned to face him, and this time, there was no hesitation. He kissed me, and this time, I kissed him back. What began as fleeting moments of longing spiraled into something neither of us could control. We were careful at first, finding quiet corners where we wouldn't be disturbed. But as time passed, it became harder to hide. Michael began asking questions, subtle at first, then more pointed. "You and Ethan seem to be getting along well," he remarked at dinner one night. "He's been a big help around the house," I replied, forcing a smile. Michael nodded, his expression unreadable. It's good to know someone's keeping you company while I'm busy. The first real crack appeared when Ethan's best friend, Ryan, visited. He was sharp, observant. Must be nice, Ryan said one afternoon, his eyes flicking between us. Having someone to keep you company? His words sent a chill through me. Later, Ethan found me in the kitchen, his expression tense. Ryan knows something. I figured, I admitted, my voice shaky. Ethan shook his head. He's not stupid, and Michael's going to figure it out. As the days passed, the weight of our secret pressed down on us. The risks grew, but so did our feelings. And no matter how dangerous it became, I couldn't let him go. Because once a line is crossed, there's no going back. It became clear that Michael wasn't oblivious. And neither was Ryan. Then there was Claire, Michael's colleague, whose casual visits had started turning into something more intrusive. One Saturday afternoon, she arrived uninvited but completely at ease. She had been to the house before, always under the pretense of dropping something off for Michael. This time, she carried a bottle of wine and an overly bright smile. I thought I'd stop by, she said, as she walked into the kitchen, where I was chopping vegetables. I forced a polite smile. I'm fine, Claire. She placed the bottle on the counter and leaned against the island, scanning the room as if cataloguing every detail. This place is gorgeous. You've done such a great job making it feel like home. Thank you, I replied, keeping my voice steady. Her eyes lingered on the back door, where Ethan had stepped out just moments before. Michael's lucky to have you. And Ethan, of course he's such a big help around here, isn't he? My heart skipped a beat, but I maintained a neutral expression. He's been great. It's nice having him around. Claire's smile was knowing, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. I bet it is. As the weeks went on, Claire's visits became more frequent. She always had a reason, some paperwork for Michael, a quick question about a project, but I sensed her real purpose. She was gathering information. Whether it was about Michael, Ethan, or me, I wasn't sure. One afternoon, as we sat in the living room, she casually remarked, Michael doesn't talk much about his personal life, but I get the sense things haven't been perfect between you two. I stiffened, gripping my teacup a little tighter. Every marriage has its challenges, I said carefully. Claire's smile was too sweet. Of course, but I imagine it helps having Ethan around. He seems very attentive. The implication was clear. My pulse quickened, but I refused to let her see my discomfort. Meanwhile, Ryan, Ethan's best friend, had started making comments of his own. Always blunt, sometimes even harsh. One evening, as he and Ethan sat on the patio with beers in hand, he leaned in and said, Harper, you've been spending a lot of time with Sophia. Ethan shrugged, keeping his tone light. She's my stepmom. Of course, we talk. Ryan wasn't convinced. Yeah, but it's not just that, is it? His gaze was sharp. Ethan's grip on his bottle tightened. What are you trying to say? Ryan held his stare. I'm saying you're acting different. And I think it's not just because of work stress. There's something else going on. Ethan stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the stone. You don't know what you're talking about. Ryan didn't back down. Don't I? The tension in the house became unbearable. Every conversation with Michael felt like walking a tightrope. Every visit from Claire felt like a test. And Ethan was growing restless, his frustration bubbling over. One evening in the library, he turned to me, his expression serious. I can't keep doing this. I swallowed hard. Ethan, we have to be careful. Careful isn't enough, he shot back. Ryan's suspicious, Claire's prying. And Michael isn't as oblivious as you think? I looked away, my eyes stinging. What are you suggesting? That we stop. Ethan moved closer, lowering his voice. You know I can't do that. But we need a plan because this isn't sustainable. The breaking point came at a dinner party Michael insisted on hosting. Claire was there, of course, along with Michael's colleagues. Ryan had been invited too, courtesy of Ethan. The evening started off smoothly, laughter, polite conversation, the clinking of wine glasses. But as the night wore on, the atmosphere shifted. So, Sophia, Claire said, cutting through the chatter, how do you keep yourself occupied with Michael away so often? I froze. Her question was laced with something unspoken. I forced a casual tone. The usual things: gardening, reading, helping Ethan with some projects. Claire's smile sharpened. You must be very close, then. Across the table, Ryan raised an eyebrow, glancing at Ethan. Yeah, Ethan's been spending a lot of time here lately. Makes sense, though. Sophia's pretty easy to talk to. The table fell silent. Michael's expression was unreadable. Claire sipped her wine, clearly enjoying the tension. Ethan abruptly pushed back his chair. Excuse me, he muttered, leaving the room. I didn't hesitate. I think I'll check on him. I found Ethan pacing in the garden, the soft glow of the patio lights casting shadows across his face. This was a mistake, he said as I approached. What was? I asked, my heart racing. All of it, he muttered, letting Ryan come here, pretending everything's fine. It's not, Sophia. It's falling apart. I reached for him, brushing his arm. We'll figure it out. He looked at me, desperation in his eyes. How? Because I'm running out of ways to hold this together. Before I could answer, we froze at the sound of footsteps on the gravel. Michael stood at the garden's edge, silhouetted against the light. What's going on out here? His voice was calm, but there was something dangerous beneath the surface. Ethan and I exchanged a quick glance, the weight of the moment settling between us.